Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. This is the card that we are going to be creating and as per usual, not everything went to plan, but it ended up looking gorgeous. So you can see that the flower has quite a lot of dimension, and so it probably is one of those cards that needs to be either hand delivered or has some extra packing if you're going to post it. I have this red cardstock here, and I actually must admit that I lost some footage here, so I'm going to kind of piece it together. But this red cardstock is from this Nina Creative Collection, so it's just £65. It's not super heavy cardstock, but this is where I use most of my colored cardstock from this collection. It has kind of every color that you need. It has been fantastic. So I've had it for ages and I'm still working my way through it. So that's where this nice deep dark red color comes from. And what I'm going to do is I am going to use up these couple of spare bits that I have. This is where I lost the footage, but this is the process that I did. So I have some perfect pearls here in the perfect pearl color, and I'm just going to add this to a little bit of water down the bottom. I don't need to make up heaps of this, so I'm just going to make up a little bit. As you can see, my spray bottle is way too big, but that's okay. And so I'm just going, it's plain water in there, just normal plain tap water actually is where I live. It's fine to use the tap water. And I'm adding in a couple of little spoonfuls of the perfect pearl, and then just add it back in, shake it back up, and you kind of have like a homemade shimmer powder. It sprays beautifully and even, and from my experience, I haven't clogged up my sprayers doing this at all, so it seems to be fine. And then you can just see I'm going to spray it kind of heavily, like I spray plenty on there. Make sure that it's nice and saturated, and you can see the pearl, the shimmer that's in there. It's wet at the moment, and I just did it first up so that I can leave it to dry whilst I work on the rest of my project. And next up, you can see here, this is where I got the other piece of footage back. These are the wet pieces of red cardstock. So I'm going to put those aside so that they can dry. And I have going to move on to the next thing, which is this blue shimmery cardstock. This is just a scrap that I have that I wanted to use up because it's super pretty. This is going to be quite a shimmery kind of card. I'm going to use some silver shimmery cardstock soon too. And then I have this die here that is from AliExpress, and it's just kind of a viney, swirly, twirly die. It has some leaves in it too. And I'm thinking I want to create some kind of pattern down the bottom of this card. So as I was saying, here is some of the silver cardstock. It's kind of a shimmery, glimmery cardstock, and that's what I'm going to cut out the twirls out of. You don't have to have this die specifically. If it's still around, I will link it down in the description box below. But I'm sure in your stash, if you have a look through, you can make something work. I did just want to say, while I've got a second, that I have started a Facebook page called Come Crafting with Natasha. I will leave a link down below in the description box, and you are welcome to come over and join up so that you can share your ideas or inspiration, anything kind of roughly card making. I don't have too specific an idea of what the Facebook page our goal is, but it's really just a place where we can share the ideas and the inspiration for our card making. So you're welcome to come and join me over there. Anyway, back to the card. I have just lined the back of this silver piece of cardstock with some stick it adhesive, which is just like double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to do that before I run it through my die cutting machine with this die. The idea being that once I come to sticking it down, it will make it a lot less fussy, but doesn't always work that way, but that's okay. Anyhow, I'm just going to run it through my die cutting machine 3 times on this piece of paper, and I do kind of run it through like back and forth each time, and then mainly because it's quite a small intricate die. Next up here, I'm just looking for a little scrap of green cardstock that I can cut out a couple of leaves from. So I have this little scrap here. It's not quite the right green that I want, so I'm just going to add a little bit of Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink, and that way I can just make it a slightly darker tone. I felt like the lime green was a little bright for what I was going for the card. These couple of leaves are from a set of Flowers and Leaves, one of my favorite sets that I always use, and I will try and link that down below as well. That's from our. I'm just going to run through this leaf die a couple of times each, so I've got two of each different shaped leaf, and then I'm going to move on to making the flower. So I have these dies here. Again, these are from Ali, and I will try and link them down below if I can find them. The cardstock has dried, and I'm going to try something here. So I wanted to give the cardstock kind of some texture. I could have used an embossing folder to start this process, but I am just going to scrunch up the paper. Now I want to do it kind of delicately, if that makes sense, if you can delicately scrunch up a piece of paper. I don't want to rip the paper and I don't want to ruin it. I just want to kind of get some really good wrinkles and crinkles in there. So I kind of delicately scrunch it up and then pull it apart and just sort of really try and crease all the fibers of the paper. Now I am doing this before I die cut the flowers, so of course when I die cut the paper it will, lots of those wrinkles, you know, it won't be quite as wrinkled as it appears right now, but you can definitely kind of re-wrinkle it, so to speak, re-scrunch it up after you have die cut the flowers. Now if I had done it after I die cut the flowers, I just didn't want to run the risk of changing the shape of the flowers, if that makes sense. So I did it beforehand. Anyway, it just gives it kind of an added extra layer of texture really. So I cut out two of each size, and there is 4 different size flowers altogether. And I am going to use a hot glue gun. I'm sure you could use normal glue or liquid glue or whatever. I've kind of bent up the leaves a little bit on each of them just with my fingers, just really quickly. And you can see there that there's 9 little flowers that I'm going to put all together. And this is like a super simple way of putting together flower. As I said, it does end up quite bulky, and if you wanted it to be less bulky, you certainly wouldn't have to have this many layers. I went through my button stash and I found this kind of little button here that looked good, and it's got that wee bit through the back which you would obviously thread the button on with, but that is going to fit nicely through the hole in the middle of these flowers, so it will actually work out quite well. So again, I'm just using some hot glue to do this, but as I said, you could use, I'm sure, whatever you want. You just have to be a little more patient. And then I'm going to layer up all the rest, again, just using hot glue for the whole flower, but I am going, when I put the next one on, I'm going to shift it around a little bit so it fills up the gaps. The next layer of petals fills up the gaps, and then just keep going and going and going. So I do really like the look of this flower, and actually I did consider doing it in felt. I thought that would be quite cool as well, but you certainly wouldn't be able to put as many layers because felt would become much more bulky than the paper has here. But I did like the look of this flower in the end, and I'm glad I crumpled up the paper. As you can see, once I've been through the die cutting machine, it's not a kind of a crumpled look that you end up with. But it just gives it that extra little something, I think. And then there is the final layer of petals going on. And then you can kind of just adjust it and pull them out a little bit and kind of make them, you know, fluff up the flower and make it look all pretty and ready to go. But yeah, I like it. Very dimensional though. And then after this, I'm going to move on to putting a little thin strip of the same silver cardstock across the kind of like the upper maybe 3/4 mark or so of the card, just to give it kind of some definition as to where the swirls and things will stop. This is the basic layout of the card. I'm just creasing those leaves a little bit to give them a little bit of dimension, and I'm just roughly getting my placement see how many leaves, see where I can fit a sentiment in, see where the flower's going to fit in, and you can see the kind of layout roughly. I'm going to use this stamp set for wishing you a happy birthday. Again, this is one of my old favorites. This is from Ali, and I will try and link it down below, but I have used it on many videos before if you would like to check out some previous videos from my channel. And I'm going to also stamp it on the same silver cardstock. I'm just going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I've gone with a simple black because there's definitely already enough colours and things going on in this card. And I'm just going to trim it out super duper simple. It's kind of just going to fit on the top left hand side of the card design, and I'm just going to cut it on a really plain angle. As I said, there's already plenty going on with this card, so I don't want to add too much more bits and pieces. So it's kind of all looking like it's sitting nicely there. I've got my silver die cuts all cut out. Now, when you add sticker adhesive to the back of the cardstock, things don't always die cut quite as easily because you're adding a whole nother layer of paper and adhesive. So I like that because then your design is left inside and it doesn't come out and it's not all, it's just left in the piece of paper so that you can take it out when you're ready. So this one, I'm just removing the sticker adhesive from the back, and the good thing about sticker is that you can press it down really lightly and it's still removable, but once you press it down really hard, it will become permanent. So that is a good feature and sometimes a bad feature, but in this case it is working for me. That's what I need. So I am just going to paper piece all these pieces together, all these different little swirls, cut them from bits and pieces, use up bits that I cut off the edges from others. It's a really good opportunity just to kind of use bits from all over the place. And that's what I mean. You don't have to have a die that covers, the whole bottom panel. It doesn't have to be a large die to be able to make this pattern. You can kind of put it all together and no one would know that you've just reused the same small die over and over and over. It just creates a nice swirly small pattern. And I'm just going to fill in, I'm sorry that I'm slightly off camera every now and then, I'm just going to fill in all the wee corners. You can see that there are some gaps that need filled in, and as I said, I just take little pieces, I'm cutting off the edges and keep going, keep putting them in, keep putting them in. And also that strip up the top serves as a really nice way to kind of cut cleanly off the tops of those designs. You can see they're all kind of messy at the top there, and so adding that silver strip up the top is a nice way to finish it off. So that's kind of the bottom part all nice and done. Just push it down really well so that everything becomes permanent with the sticker. And again, it was seriously one of those days for me. Everything was not going to plan when I was filming this. With batteries and cameras and lighting, everything was a challenge. So anyway, I lost some more footage of me hot gluing the big flower on and adding a little foam tape and putting the sentiment on. But anyway, I'm sure you get the gist of what that is like. And now I'm just going to add a bit of liquid glue, in fact quite a lot, because the flower does make the card not weighty, but add some extra weight. And I'm going to stick it onto a 110-pound Nina Solar White card base that I have made, and that is pretty much the card. I just wanted to also say that the comments that you guys are leaving are truly, truly appreciated. It is really heartwarming to read some of the comments that you guys are leaving, so I thank you. Also, I hope you enjoyed this card today, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!